Hey friends, welcome back to She's At It Again. My name's Tanya, and this morning I'm going to be making some pasta, and I thought I'd bring you along. I'm not going to make a big batch to use all of it right now, but I'll be making a couple of things in just within the next couple of weeks or so, and I'll bring you along for that adventure too. But I'll make mine ahead of time, and then we'll let it dry, and I want you to see that process. It's such an easy process. This is not an egg pasta. A lot of times you'll see demonstrations, videos for, well, I have a light flickering, sorry. Actually, I need to turn these other lights on too. But in the meantime, I'll tell you that a lot of times you'll see egg pasta recipes, but this is not an egg pasta. This is egg-free pasta. So for those of you who have family members or loved ones who will be eating with you who have an egg allergy, this might be something that will pique your interest. And the reason I'm not using eggs for this pasta is that I'm just a little stingy with my eggs. I have a friend who has chickens, and I buy eggs from her, and they're not just extravagantly expensive, but they're rather costly. She feeds them organic stuff. She takes good care of her chickens, but they're such good eggs, I almost hate using them in anything. But I'll splurge to use them in mayonnaise, things that have to have eggs in them, or what I feel like have to have eggs in them. But if I can make a pasta without eggs, that's what we're going for. So today I want to show you how to do that. So the first thing we're going to start out with is in our mixer bowl. Now you don't have to have a big stand mixer to do this. You can just do this on the countertop. You can do it in a bowl. Do it with whatever you have. So we're going to start out with 3 level cups of organic plain flour. This is not a specialty flour. This is not semolina. If you have semolina, that's great. I applaud you for being able to find it, but this is just plain, unbleached, organic flour. We're going to add to that 1 teaspoon of salt, and this is just pink Himalayan salt. I'm going to make a well in the center of this. It'll look like a little bird nest in there. We have 1 cup of just filtered water in here. Just use tap water if that's what you have. Try to keep it in that little bird nest if you can. Whoops, mine ran over the side. And then 2 tablespoons of just the best quality olive oil you have. You are welcome to have this recipe. I wouldn't make a larger batch than this at a time. It's better to keep it in smaller quantities. For some reason, it just does better. I'm not sure the science behind that, but it does. But you're welcome to divide this recipe in half. Just use half of each ingredient, or even a 1/4. You want to just try it and see if you like it. This is a good recipe, again, to get people involved in. If you have anybody young enough as a small child who likes to work with dough and just thinks it's fun to play with it, mix it up, wash their hands really well, and get them to mixing this up. If you have a family member who is having some memory difficulties and not really sure how they can help and fit into the big picture of your life, then this is something to get them involved in too. I get very emotional about that because I just know there are a lot of situations out there we're so unaware of where people are taking care of family members and they just can't figure out what to get them to do to make them feel valuable. I encourage you to help your members of your family feel valuable by getting them involved in something like this that will not harm them, but they can join you in this, and I think they would really enjoy it. So let me regain my composure if I can. We're just going to start our mixer. We're going to let this run for about 5 to 10 minutes. So this, I'm sure I won't video the whole thing, but just know that this is going. This is going to mix up into a really nice dough. And once we mix this up, we're going to let this relax. And so that'll be a time period where you'll just know that it's relaxing when the camera's not going. If you need to add just a tiny bit more water, you're welcome to do that. Don't add a lot more. You can always add more later, but you can't add less. Of course, you can always add flour to this. This isn't one of those things where you have to be careful about not adding something to where it'll ruin it. It's not going to ruin it. Every once in a while, you can stop your mixer and just feel it and make sure it's the right consistency. This looks a little dry to me, I think, so I need to feel it and see what it feels like. No, I think we might could keep mixing that. Just don't get overzealous with the water because you don't want this to be a super soft dough. It's going to be a pretty dry dough, but we're going to cover it to relax it after a while. So we're just going to let this mix a while. All right, our mixer's been going for close to 5 minutes. I honestly don't know how long it's been going because I wasn't watching the clock, I was checking the mail. So when your dough pulls away from the side of the bowl, that's a good sign that you have a good mix and it's not too dry, it's not too wet. So that's a really good sign. And my bowl is, well, except for that one little spot right there, now I got it off. It is perfectly clean from the bowl. There is nothing left in there. So that's a really good filling dough. All right, so what we're going to do with this, remember this is a flour that has gluten in it. So this is one of those things, it's like when you get out of bed in the morning and somebody says, let's go, and they yank the covers off and you're like, no, I want the covers back on me. This is kind of what the dough does. It wants to go back into the shape that it was. So if I pull this apart, it automatically wants to go back into the shape that it was. But if we let this relax and let the particles of the wheat hydrate, then it's going to be more relaxed, just like it says, relaxed. And it's going to allow us to roll it out. And I'm going to get my pasta roller out. We're going to roll out some sheets of this, and then we're going to cut some of it thin. We're going to leave some of it thick because pretty soon I want to make a pan of lasagna. And I want to bring you along for that. And then I also want to make some bacon and beef stroganoff that is out of this world. Oh my goodness. It's embarrassing to admit this, but I'm just going to tell you right now. Bacon beef stroganoff, I can eat it so much until I get sick. And then I go back and eat some more. It is just that good. It's ridiculous. But I will tell you this funny story. One time we had, when we lived in Tulsa a few years ago, we had guests coming in from out of town and just a couple of people. And so I fixed this big pan of bacon beef stroganoff and I left it after dinner. I put it in the kitchen so it could cool off before I put it in the refrigerator. And we got to talking and visiting and everybody went to take their showers. They went to bed late that night. I got up the next morning and it was still on the counter. I almost cried. You know, they say the phrase, don't cry over spilled milk. Well, I was just about to cry over left out stroganoff. Oh, it was devastating. That story really hits home because it wasn't the fact that I was wasting food, and that was just a minute part of it, but it was so good. I wanted the leftovers so bad, and yet I knew that it would probably give me food poisoning if I did. I just somehow knew that, even though, you know, our grandparents probably did that all the time, left food out. But anyway, that was my story about the bacon beef stroganoff, but we're going to be making that soon too. So look for that video when it comes out. All right, so for now, we're going to take this. I think I'm just going to put this in, it's not a zip top bag. It's those bags that you buy that have the twisty ties for them, but I'm going to put it in that. No oil or extra oil or anything because you don't need any of that. I'm just going to put it in that and leave it out on the counter for an hour or so. We'll come back and start rolling this out later on. And then I'll get, that way it'll give me a chance to get my mixer all cleaned up. So anyway, we'll be back to roll this out in a bit. We're ready to make our pasta now. It's been I don't know why I keep looking at the clock because I can't remember what time it was when I walked out of here. I'm thinking it's been maybe an hour and a half because in the meantime, a neighbor's mom from out of state came over and we visited for a while. And then I went out in the yard and picked up some sticks and checked my plants and emptied out some buckets because it's been raining like crazy. And I kind of have a system for my container plants that's just kind of weird. I'm not ready to show it to you yet because there may be something I haven't thought about yet, and then I'm going to lead people astray and I feel bad about it. So I kind of want to test this out for a while and then I'll let viewers in on it. Okay, so here's our pasta. You can see how stretchy this is now. Super stretchy, and it's really soft. I'm really glad I didn't add more water to it, that's for sure. So this is the bag that I put it in. It's just one of those plain bags. It's like a zip top bag without the zip. Let's get a bench scraper out. We're going to need to cut this in sections. There's no way you can work with all this at one time. It's just too much. The pasta machine won't handle that, the pasta roller. So I'm going to get some flour out of my big bucket over here to have at hand. We're going to have our work surface nicely floured. And just work with part of this at a time, maybe a fourth of it at a time at the very most. So again, with pasta dough, it does not matter at this point how much more flour you add to it. You're probably not going to risk getting it too dry. You'll be able to tell when it's too dry. So get that floured enough where it won't stick to anything. Now I have my baking sheets, just my plain everyday baking sheets. I normally have them lined in parchment, but I took all the parchment out of them. There's no need to use parchment when you're letting them dry. They're not going to stick, I promise you that. So here's our handle to our pasta machine. If you have a pasta machine like this and you bought it with good intentions and then you've never used it because it's just intimidating or you tried it and it didn't work, let me assure you that this is easier than you probably think it is. Just mark my word on this. So there's a dial on the side here with numbers, and you want to set this to the lowest number that's available, which would be a 1, the highest number being a 7, but you're going to work your way up. So we're going to run it through on number, no, I take that back. You're going to start out with the largest number. That's it. You can tell I don't do this every week. We're going to start out with the largest number, which is number 7 on this. We're going to run it through several times just to get it sheeted, and then we're going to work our way to number 1 or however thin you want your pasta. I like mine at number 1, but if you want thicker pasta, like if you're making dumplings or something like that, you can use a larger number. So you're going to take your blob of dough. Now this is pretty well floured. I don't have just a massive overage of flour on it. It's just enough to where it won't be too sticky. But put it in the top and just keep turning this wheel. Now this is with kind of a vise. It is clamped to my countertop. So now when you run it through there, it's going to pick up little pieces of pasta from times before. And they'll be dark colored just from the oils and stuff in the machine, I guess. I'm not real sure. I don't think there's anything funky in my machine. But they say never to wash this with water, so you just have to brush it out as best you can to get all the flour and stuff out. And just keep on moving ahead. So we're going to take it and fold it several times. We're going to run it through again. Kind of like making croissants in that it's going to have multiple layers to it. It's not going to give it that flaky effect because it's pasta, but it's just a way of keeping it together and rolling it back through the machine. If your dough isn't quite the right consistency as far as moisture in it, it may look like it's tearing, but it's okay. Just keep running it through there. What you don't want it to do is be so sticky that it gets stuck in the rollers. And I've done that before, so I speak from experience. And you might run this through here 20 times. That's not unusual, so don't think you're being a loser at it if you have to run it through more times than what I'm running it through. And you'll probably run it through less because I'm just quite particular about the way it looks when I run it through. You want it to have that non-crackledy look. You want it to be smooth when it runs through, and you'll know when that happens. This is getting pretty close to being the way we want it as the final product. Now this is not going to make things like macaroni and ziti and rotini and things like that. This is not one of those machines. This is just going to make flat sheets of pasta. But I have a pasta cutter attachment onto it that cuts it into thinner strips like linguine and fettuccine and things like that. Or use it like this and make, whoops. If you let go of that handle, it will fall out. You can make just sheets of lasagna with this. Okay, we're going to start reducing our numbers on the next one. Hang tight, I got to turn the fan on. That is just not enough air moving for me. When I first come in the kitchen in the morning, I don't notice it, but as time goes on and I start moving, I definitely realize there's no air moving. I gotta have it moving. Okay, so this sheet is nice and smooth. You can see there's no cracklies in it, and it looks very good. So we're gonna reduce it to number 6. Put a little more dusting of flour on it just so it won't stick. Shake it off. And these will get long enough to where the thinner it gets, the longer it's going to get, and we'll probably need to cut it in half to work it through the machine. Okay. And this is why we put flour on it, so you don't want it to stick together. And at this point, we cut it in half. All right, we're going to turn it to number 5. Oops, I got too sticky on that end. We're going to do this one over. See if I can do it on number 4. Nope. I'll show you what happens when you do that. It falls apart. So we'll go back to number 7 on this one. Add a little more flour to it. we go, that's a good one. Okay, reduce it to number 6. Remember, we had to start over at number 7. That still feels really sticky on the end for some reason. I'm sure glad I didn't add more water to that. Okay, we're down to number 5. I can't remember what number that one was on, so we're just going to guess. Or I'm just going to guess. You're probably sitting there yelling at me, it was on 4, but I'm not hearing you. Okay, that one's quite a bit longer, so we're going to run this one through it. That one, no, that one feels pretty thin. That one was probably on 4. We may have to cut this one in half because it's too long too. That looks like a big giant sock to me. I don't know about y'all. Okay, we'll turn on 4. Run this one through. That's going to be long. Yow. Okay, time to cut that one in half too. I'm telling you, you can only work with small amounts at a time. It's crazy how big it gets, the flatter it gets. All right, we're on 3 now. This reminds me of one of those wringer type washers from, I say back in the olden days. For me, it's back in the olden days. My Aunt Catherine had one at her house, and I was totally mesmerized by it as a kid. I remember it sitting out in the yard, and they would get together and they would get this super hot water in a tub. They'd build a fire and get super hot water in it and wash those clothes with what looked like a big boat paddle, a big wooden boat paddle, and they would run them through this wringer type washer. And as a kid, I'm thinking, that looks like so much fun. I'm telling you, if I'd have lived back then and had to do that, I'd have just probably stunk really bad because I would not want to wash clothes. I'm sure they didn't want to wash clothes, but they had no air conditioning. We went to her house. We took a bath in a galvanized wash tub in the middle of the kitchen floor. They put some kind of curtain over the door. And of course, we were just little kids, but we thought that was the coolest thing ever to take a bath in the kitchen. But now, nope. Again, I would just have to be dirty. I'm sorry. All right, I'm going to cut this one in half because it's gotten out of control. We're on 2 now. I think 2 might be as thin as I want to go with these. I don't think I need it on 1. Those are pretty thin. Don't you stick together down there. Stop that. Now when I'm making my lasagna noodles, I'll probably cut these right here into like the fettuccine with noodles or something around there. But when I do my lasagna noodles, I'll probably only go down to maybe a 3. because it doesn't matter if they're a little bit thicker. And it may not be a big deal to y'all to make your homemade pasta, but again, I live in a small town, and organic pasta, you're just kind of at a loss when you're looking for a big variety. Now, I can go to Little Rock and find different kinds of pasta, but I mean, how many times do I want to go to Little Rock just to buy pasta? So, just got to make your own. I'm going to save those trips and that purchase for things that I can't make homemade, for things like the ziti and the macaroni noodles. Macaroni noodles are harder to find, I think, than ziti noodles. I said in an earlier video when I was doing a different dish that our Big Lots sometimes carries organic pasta, and I'll buy all they have. But it's one of those things. They might have it this time and they might never get it again, so I can't really count on that. And our natural food store and our Good Measure Market will carry some sorts of pasta, but sometimes when I go in, they've just sold out, so I can't always count on the fact that they have exactly what I need. So we make what we can and buy the rest. Okay, those are super thin. All right, I'm gonna put my attachment on here. It's been a long time since I've used this. I think I remember how to use this. All right, it has some slots right here that just slide into this somehow. Nope, not like that. Let me think. Is it like this? No, wait. How did I do that last time? Oh, yes it is. That's how we do it. And then there's holes over here on this side. Okay, I'm good. I'm good. All right, we're going to use the larger side of this. Ooh, that's fun. Kind of fun, but kind of nerve-wracking. I'm not nervous about it, but just the fact that it was sticky a while ago kind of made me uneasy about it. Okay, I'm just rolling it through this, and hopefully it's cutting it accordingly. I probably should have cut this in half lengthwise. All right. I think we're good. Oh, stink, it's longer than my pan. All right, we'll cut it now. See if it'll fit in here this way. Yay. This is the part where you kind of be cautious with it just because you don't want it overlapping too much. Now, when these dry, they'll easily break apart. So, I don't know if this, I don't think these are adjustable at all. All right, I'm going to cut this one in half. There, that worked better. I almost look like I know what I'm doing with that one, huh? I have 5 rimmed baking sheets there, so that should be enough for some of this pasta. When I start running out of room with the cut pasta, then that's when I'll start making sheets of lasagna, because I just lay it around on the counter. Just whatever's clean. All right, these are a lot easier to handle when they're cut short. Trust me on that one. It almost like it just almost cuts it all the way through, and then it stops. But it'll break easily when they dry. I do remember doing that before. I don't know that I've ever used the skinnier part of my pasta cutter. And of course, if you don't have one of these pasta machines, you roll it out with a rolling pin. It's not hard. It just takes patience. But you can pretty much tell how thin you want it. And when you're rolling it out, you can tell if you've gotten to that thickness or not. And to cut it, you get your little ruler or a straight edge of some kind, lay it down, or do like me when I'm cutting strips of stuff, I just start going and they'll overlap, and some will be skinny and some will be fat, and I don't even care because people are going to eat it and they're not going to notice. I'm after flavor, and if the aesthetics are good, then that's great, but if they're not, I am not losing sleep over that. Especially on things like pasta. All right. That one's like extra wide. Oops. If I drop it on the floor, the doggies are definitely going to find it. That'll be the first thing they head for when they come in here. But it shouldn't be that big of a deal since it's pasta. You can see why this process takes so long, just because you start out with what you think is just an average size piece of dough, and then that turns into like 4 pans of pasta. So this, I'm not going to have near enough pans for this. I need multiple tables and stuff. Now I'll probably put this out in the sunroom where it's a little warmer, and the humidity shouldn't be so high that it won't completely dry. But some of the pasta I may have to leave in here because I don't have enough table space out there. And sometimes we go out there to eat dinner, especially when the weather's nice like it has been lately. We'll go out there and eat dinner. So I don't want pasta laying on the table when I'm trying to eat. Okay. I'm not going to keep filming through this entire thing because this may take me another hour, who knows. So I think you get the gist of this. We'll come back when I start breaking this up and putting it in bags. So I just wanted you to know that the pasta machine isn't as intimidating as you may be thinking in your head. If someone has gifted you with one of these, be grateful. They're actually fun to use. And get your kids involved in this, and that parent that maybe needs to find some value in what they're doing. It would be easy for them to turn this crank and help you out, because really and truly, this is kind of a two-person job when you're just starting out, because one person has to grab it while the other person's turning the crank. So if you can turn the crank and grab it at the same time, good for you. But if not, it would be fun to have help. But anyway, we'll be back when I start breaking this pasta up. And then of course, later on videos, we'll show you at least 2 different dishes with homemade pasta in it. So hang in there and we'll be back to see the rest of this process. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours since we made our pasta and put it out to dry. And I've had it in the sunroom, and it's a little more humid today than what, than what most people are used to. It's even humid for here, but it was warm and I couldn't resist going out working in the yard. That's why I look exhausted, because I am. But see how well this is coming apart? You just basically pick it up and break it on those little lines. This is so fun. This is actually pretty thin. This is thinner than what most pasta would be that you'd buy in the store, so it's going to cook super fast. Now, if you wanted to cook your pasta, get your boiling salted water ready, and you can cook it from that floppy state, and it takes usually about 60 seconds. So between 1 and 2 minutes and your pasta is done. Unlike the 11 to 15 you normally take to cook it in when you buy hard pasta that's in a bag from the store. So this is probably going to cook a lot faster than that pasta from the store, but not quite as quick as it would as if it were floppy. And I'll probably break these up because I'm going to break them up before I put them in the pan anyway. So anyway, just so you got to look at that. That's our pasta. Oh, and I wanted to show you these too. These are my pieces. These are not quite dry. You can see these are still floppy, but these are the pieces that I made for lasagna. And they'll get broken up, put in the pan, fit in there like a puzzle anyway. This one's pretty dry. They kind of curl up on the edges. But it's funny when I make lasagna, if people aren't familiar with homemade lasagna and all they've ever had is just something from a restaurant, they take one bite and they go, "Did you make this pasta?" Almost like it's something they do in foreign countries and they don't do here. So if they only knew how easy it was, it's kind of laughable when they say that, because you want to sit back and go, "Why, yes, I did make that pasta all by my little Italian self." But no, it's really not that hard. So I can't take credit for being a genius, just somebody that likes to make stuff from scratch. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope this has been beneficial to you. Like I said, the next few videos might be, or the next 2 to follow this, might be the ones where we use the pasta and make different dishes. One being the bacon beef stroganoff. So good. And of course, lasagna. Everybody's got their own favorite lasagna. We have our favorite lasagna, so we hope you join us to see those. But thank you for spending time with us today. Always enjoy doing this once I get into it, once I get everything hooked up and the lights turned on like they're supposed to be. But we look forward to seeing you again next time. Thank you.